Hey guys, right now I'm at a place called Japanese Gardens. A lot of mythical stories and creatures and lessons, stories that told to learn lessons can be found in Japan. But I think the most famous when it comes to mythology is going to have to be Greece or Greek. Mythology has a lot of history in it, and it is like history. It has a little bit of everything. It has sociology, psychology, anthropology, literature, religion, science, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the mythology stories are going extinct, if you will. Religion kind of took over mythology, and now science has taken over religion. So, a lot of people argue with science, we don't need religion or mythology anymore to teach us life lessons, or just to hear the stories because they're so cool and interesting, I think. So it has a little bit of everything, kind of like a buffet. And if you're like me, you love buffets, right? You can eat so much, and believe me, when it comes to mythology, there is a lot to eat. In this series, I'm sure you are going to hear some things or some stories or some facts or theories that you've already heard before. But I hope to explore and go other places besides Japan or Greece. I'd like to go to South America. I'd like to go to Africa. I'd like to go to Europe. And discover other mythologies, not just the Greek ones. So I hope to tell you something that you haven't heard before, and I hope that you learned something. Whether you're just interested in mythology, maybe you're writing a school paper and you need some information, whether that be college or high school or maybe even middle school. So I hope this series brings some value to you, and I want to keep each video between 10 to 15 minutes long, so it's not that long. But with more videos, it turns into a series, and there's going to be a lot of information packed into this series, I hope. So I hope you'll continue watching. What is a myth? Myths are very, very, very old and ancient. There's many questions about mythology, many versions, and also many interpretations. Myth and religion are so close to the same, but yet distinct, it can be hard to tell which is which. But back in the old time, myth was literally their religion. Many stories sound like religious stories to teach society a norm or a lesson, or many other things. We have gods and immortals. We even have sons of gods and daughters of gods that are half immortals and half gods. And I am going to focus more on the stories than the facts, because it's hard to tell what is fact and what is theory and what is a story. But the stories are always the fun parts.
Myths, interesting enough, don't have original authors or origins. Could you imagine being Homer telling the story of Odyssey and getting all the credit when the first guy that told that story before gets nothing? But what's important is that story was handed down for generations and generations. Teaching. Myths are old stories being told in new settings. And a myth don't necessarily mean it's a lie or something non-valuable. There's a lot of wisdom and knowledge and truth that can come away from myths, which is why the stories get told over and over again for generations. There are absurdities to myths, but can always come out with a lesson. Myth comes from the Greek word mythos, which means word or story. Most people I know of the Greek stories, but in this series, I want to go all over. What makes a good myth? Significance. It's about something important, how the world works, how the world was created, and why things are the way they are. Also, endurance. How long will that story be told? How long will that story be passed down? Centuries, generations, and even millennia. The testament is in the stories themselves and the people who tell them. If they had no endurance or longevity, people would not still be telling them stories. Religion and folk tales and even fairy tales can be considered all myths, but all real myths are religious and has to do with creation, or at least quasi-religious. But not all myths have to do with God or gods. There are stories of just heroes. Let's take the myth from rags to riches. It's not a myth because it's not true. It's a myth because it has endurance and longevity. I brought this up because myths can also have or be beliefs or credos. To give you another example of the kind of stories we will be sharing, let's go to Greece, where everything is blue and white. Blue roofs, white houses, blue ocean, white wave crests, blue sky and white clouds, great cheese and great history and ruins. We are going to tell you a story that you are going to hear these kind of stories throughout the series, and we are going to start with Persephone, or Cora. Persephone was the daughter of Zeus and Demeter. So Persephone was either kidnapped, tricked, or maybe even went on her own will to Hades. And Persephone's mother, Demeter, was very upset about this and threatened to starve the whole country, the whole world. So Zeus went down to Hades and tried to talk to him. Hades, I believe, was Zeus's stepbrother. And this was hard for Zeus because Zeus already promised Hades his daughter in her hand in marriage. Hades agreed to let Persephone come back up to the upper world and release her from the underworld. But before he did, he asked her if she would like something to eat and gave her a pomegranate. While she was down there, Persephone ate 6 pomegranate seeds. And the rules are, if you eat while you're in the underworld, you have to stay. So since she ate 6 seeds of pomegranate, she had to stay down there in 6 months. So instead of Demeter starving the whole world, when Persephone came back to the immortal world, if you will, everything grew. It flourished. And it was able to feed everybody. But because she ate 6 seeds while in the underworld, she had to go back down for 6 months. And while she was down there, the world froze, which explains where we get our seasons from. And they also call Persephone the queen of the underworld. So this story has significance because of, one, its endurance. It's been told over and over again. It gives us an explanation of why there are seasons, and also it is an origin story where the seasons came from. The story explains where seasons came from and tells us when to plant and harvest. This type of myth is considered primitive science because there are people who use myths to explain things about the world, and then there are those who use science, which in the modern era has taken the place of myths, and soon it will take over religion as well. What do you guys think about the story of Persephone? What do you guys think about the first episode of the series so far? Comment below. And do you think we still need myths? Or is science the way we should go and deal away with myths altogether? In the translation of myths, there are a lot of theories, which is what makes it somewhat so interesting. Because when you talk about theories, you can go on and on forever. You can go down so many rabbit holes and interpret things so differently. And everybody uses their brain differently, which when they hear a story, they can get a different meaning from that story. I hope you guys stay for this series and take a journey of a basic understanding into mythology, which might pique your interest to discover more. Come back for my next video where we will start talking about creation and where it came from and how everything was created. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.